powers behind government have induced the Republican National Committee to pay off anybody that was questionable in the acceptance of the reappointment of Mr. Bernanke. So that's the end of that. And it wouldn't make any difference anyway, because anybody else who they brought in to replace him would have been a member of the same groups and
doing the same things.
Yeah, doing the same thing and following direct directions from the people who controlled them. The interviews today, interrogation if you must, of Mr. Paulson and Geithner were very informative. They were forced to reiterate what really went on, and Mr. Paulson was scared to death again, and Mr. Geithner could have cared less what the American people thought or anybody else thought. He just forced through all his lies, and they're both disgusting creatures, and they've looted the American people of hundreds of billions of dollars, and foreigners as well, and just despicable. And if the American public does not throw out of office 75% of the miscreants that call themselves congressmen and senators, they better get used to living on their knees, because this is your last chance. And we got to get Ron Paul's bill to audit the Federal Reserve passed as well in the Senate. So you should work on that first and foremost. And if we can't get them, it is over.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Bob. You know, it was interesting. CNBC for the last few days has been running these polls, and the first day they say, was Ben Bernanke good for your money? And they were shocked when about half the people said no and half the people said yes. But when it came to asking if Tim Geithner was good for the money, less than a quarter of the people said yes, he was. 3/4 of them said no, he wasn't. They weren't so shocked then, but they've been holding Ben Bernanke up as the as the god who saved the financial world. And after seeing his picture grace the cover of Time magazine, all I can say is that shame on them. They're either ignorant or they're just bought off, and either way, it's not a pretty picture.
No, it isn't, and most of them are bought off. There's only a handful of people that aren't. Of course, there is a small segment as well in Congress that are perverts, that they don't want the world to know about it, and they're totally compromised. They don't have to pay them; they just threaten them.
Yeah, that's been going on for a long time, and that's a conversation we won't get into on family radio. But suffice it to say that we wonder how our congressmen can be so oblivious to our needs, and that's certainly one of the ways. And I was struck listening to some of that testimony today, as you said here before we came online, at the sheer arrogance of Tim Geithner, and how he sounded so righteous and so right, and it was as if he was just condescending to the panel that was conducting the inquiry. And if I were those Congress people, I would certainly take a lesson in how to be made fools of by tolerating this stuff far too long. I mean, at one point, I just turned the sound down and I went, enough is enough. We already know, we already know who's being played and who for what. But, your comment about about how disgusting it was just really, really resonates with me. Well, moving right along in another area where the government's being kind of, snakish. Let's talk a little bit about the metals and what's been happening with gold, and from there we can move to the dollar and et cetera.
Well, we had options expiration today, and every month the commercials, which are banks, who are working in behalf of the United States government, when option expiration comes up, they knock the price of gold down so that nobody can exercise their options in the money. And so it was again this month. And of course the CFTC stands there and does nothing, could care less, because they are created and paid not to pay any attention. And so that's why gold is down the last few days, and it was to take those options out. And so we had gold close down today at 1350 at 1084.40, which is a support zone from there to, well, several support zones in there. And the outside month did much better. It was only up 1050, so gold should be up in the morning. Silver closed off 41 cents in the spot market, but only 16 cents in the March market. So I expect both of them to be up in the morning along with the shares, and that game is over for another 4 weeks. And there were a number of factors this week why they wanted gold down. It wasn't only the expiration of gold options, but there's Bernanke's fight coming up for reappointment tomorrow, and of course the two criminals that were interrogated by Congress today, they wanted things to look as good as they could under the circumstances, so they made sure gold went down and stayed down for the week. And it's another lesson in how
they were hammering it all week.
Yeah, it's another example of how your government has been taken away from you. You have no Constitution. You have no Supreme Court. You just have a group of people who control everything and do what they want to do. And it's not going to change unless you change Congress and get rid of the Fed. And if you are willing to do that, you, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, ad infinitum, are going to live in slavery.
That presumes they're allowed to produce your great-grandchildren, or your grandchildren are around long enough.
Well, it's a good point, because in time, if they have their way, there'll only be selective breeding, and there's a whole trilogy of events that will go along with that. And so, everybody who's got less than 100 IQ won't be able to breed. It's as simple as that. And everybody will be neutered.
Well, the good news is that half of the folks in Congress who've been sucked into this whole mess will, let's not go there. We'll kind of leave that one. We'll kind of leave that one alone. Bob, we were following a story last week about about 401ks and the possibility of them being converted into annuities to buy treasuries. Obviously, we see the government being more and more desperate as each day goes on. Absolutely amazing the things they're trying to do to boost the sale of treasuries. But is it time for the holders of 401ks yet to begin to diversify out of that while they still have a chance? What's the latest, and what have you heard on that lately?
Well, I know how desperate the government is. On the other hand, it's coming at a very difficult time for them, because you saw what happened in New Hampshire. Even the liberals have awakened. And
are you talking about Massachusetts with Scott Brown?
Correct. And they're on the run. You got the Democrats, the whole rat race. And they know they got a serious problem. The public's caught on. And it's because of programs like this and other programs on the different types of radio reception and on the Internet that the Illuminati has never expected that they would ever run into such opposition. And of course they have. That makes them have to expedite their program, and they're going to make mistakes, and they've made plenty of them, particularly in view of the fact they're so greedy and power hungry. And so, you say to yourself, where is this all going? And if we don't do something about it, it's going to go the way they want it to go. And so the problem is right in your face, and you've got to act on it.
Well, I think that I think that I agree with you completely. We do have them on the run, and then with some things that have happened lately, we've got them on the ropes. But what you have to understand, folks, is that when the tiger is wounded, that's when she's the most dangerous, and she lashes out in the most violent of ways at times. So just because we've got these folks on the run doesn't mean that we can rest on our laurels, exhale, and give up. Now is the time to increase the pressure.